Good afternoon, and welcome to the Committee of Adjustment for Suburban Panel 2. We are a City of Ottawa quasi-judicial tribunal that holds hearings to consider Planning Act applications, including minor variances to the zoning requirements and consent to sever lands. Our hearings are now in Ben Franklin Place in person at 101 Centerpoint Drive. We also enable remote participation by video conferencing for registered speakers. We are live streaming on YouTube, and the video will be archived and available for future viewing by the public. My name is Fabien Poulin. I'll be chairing today's hearings, and you can address me by my name or as chair. And with me are my fellow panel members, Jay Baltz, George Barrett, Heather McLean, and Julianne Wright. The procedure for the hearings will be as follows. Listed on the agenda and appearing on screen from time to time are the applications we'll hear today. For the sake of efficiency, I may deal with agenda items in a different order. Panel members have reviewed the planning reports and any written submissions in support or opposition to each of the application. Today, we'll hear oral submissions relating to the applications. As part of the statutory public notification requirements, each applicant was required to post a sign on the property in question before the hearing. They also had to confirm in writing that they did so, or they'll need to swear or affirm an oath today that they're fulfilled the sign posting requirements. Otherwise, we may have to adjourn or postpone the hearing. The panel may ask for a brief presentation of an application followed by questions for the applicant and city planning staff. We will then hear from members of the public who have registered to speak, and we may also have questions for them. Finally, the applicant, who has the burden of proof, will have an opportunity to make comments in reply. Please address your comments to me as the chair, starting first with your name and spelling it if necessary, and your municipal address for the record. All presentations are limited to 5 minutes. Any exceptions will be at my discretion. At the end of the hearing, the panel may either make an oral decision or we may reserve our decision, which means it won't be delivered today. In either case, and within 10 days, the Committee of Adjustment will send the official written decision and reasons for it to all the parties, participants, and anyone else who has requested a copy. Does anyone have any questions about the procedure we'll be following today? There are no questions. We have several applications to hear today. We don't have any minutes to approve or any adjournment request. Are there any declarations of interest by any panel member today on any of this panel or the other panels? No declarations of interest. Okay, are there any questions about the procedure for today's agenda? No further questions? All right, we'll begin to hear today's applications, and we will proceed to the applications with that have made their way onto the unopposed list. And where is it here? So to qualify, the criteria to be on the unopposed applications fast track consent agenda, the following have to be all present. There are no objections or concerns from the parties, applicant, city, or the public. There are no amendments required. No registered speakers. Sign posting declaration has been received. Applicant or the agent has confirmed that they agree with all the requested conditions, if any, and there are no questions from panelists. The following items, following applications are on the fast track agenda. Item number 1, with respect to 1842 Kingsdale. Can I ask the panel if they approve of this application? All those in favor? Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, if you just could hold to make sure no one objects to it being on.
I did at the front end.
Oh, sorry.
One of the criteria.
Okay.
I did say that, but I will ask as Secretary Treasurer has asked. Are there any objections to 1842 Kingsdale being on a fast track approval of this application? There are no objections. All those in favor, please raise your hands. That application is approved. The next application up for approval is 1547 Lagan. Are there any objections to this application? No objections. I'd like to ask the panel for approval of this application. This application is approved. Next item is 1771 Walkley Road. Are there any objections to this application? No objections. All those in favor, please raise your hands. The application is approved. Next item is having to do with 3440 Woodroffe Avenue. Are there any objections to this application being approved? There are no objections. I'd like to ask the panel for approval of this application.
Mr.
Please,
Chair,
Lagan.
if I could interrupt for 1 second, there are a few agents who have their hands up.
I didn't see them. In this room?
No, sorry, online.
Ah, okay, thank you. Okay, who are we going to be starting with?
Hi there, I'm the owner of 1842 Kingsdale, the first one that was done. I just wanted to know, now that it's approved, should I just de-join the chat?
Your application has been approved, sir. If you'd like to join the chat, you're welcome to.
Perfect.
But it's been
Okay,
approved.
thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Okay. Now I notice that Mr. Bolduc, who is the agent on file for 3440 Woodroffe Avenue, would like to speak, Mr. Bolduc?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I was hoping we would have no issues. We just have a couple questions about condition 1. I don't know if this is the best time or if you want to step down and we'll come back
we'll
later.
step down. We'll step down and we'll do it in line.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bolduc. Okay. And is there another agent looking to speak on any one of the unopposed applications? No, we don't have any others. So therefore we have approved 3, item 1, item 3, and item 5. Item 6 will be back in line and we'll deal with that as it comes up. Okay, our next, so we'll now proceed in order. We'll go to application number 2. This has to do with 674 Denbury. And is Arjun Sur, are you available?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Now, the reason why it's not on the unopposed list, sir, is because we have to make a modification to one of your conditions that you're looking to, not conditions, but variances you're looking to have. Looking to remove one, item B, which says to permit a garage to be 3.9 meters closer to the front line than the principal entrance of the dwelling, whereas bylaw requires the garage to be no more than 0.6 meters closer to the front line or side lot abutting a street than is the principal residence of the dwelling. So that's proposed to be removed. Are you in agreement with that, sir?
We're in agreement with that, yes.
Okay. Can you give us a brief description of your application then, sir?
I can give a brief description. We do have a slide presentation, but I won't, unless the panel would like, I won't go through the slides. I'll just give an overview. So what this application is to construct a detached dwelling on the subject site. And the variances are to permit a lot width of 13.8 meters for a double driveway, for 5.5 meter double driveway, and to permit an ornamental projection to project 1.06 meters into the required interior side yard. So with this application, we just want to note in terms of the 4 tests, firstly that the required lot width for a 5.5 meter driveway would be 15 meters. And so this lot width is only 1.2 meters from that. And consequently, the driveway takes up only 39.8% of the front yard, whereas, on a permitted 15 meter lot, it would take up 36.8 square meters, percentage of the front yard. And so really, this application represents only a 3% difference, or this variance represents only a 3% difference from what is permitted as of right. We'd also like to note that if the adjacent parcel, 672 Denbury Avenue, is slightly larger, and this application this lot for the subject site is actually created as part of a previous consent application. And as part of that consent application, 672 Denbury the house on that property was retained. And so consequently, this lot is a little bit smaller. Had that that original severance been exactly in half, we'd have a 15.24 meter wide lot, and our 5.5 meter wide driveway would be permitted as of right. So in terms of, minor, we meet the aggregate front yard soft landscaped area. The driveway is only slightly larger of a percentage of the front yard than what would be permitted for a 15-meter lot. And I should also note that the streetscape character analysis does, in fact, permit double driveways and front-facing attached garages. So from a streetscape character analysis perspective, this would be permitted as well. In terms of the ornamental projection, the intent there is just to ensure that the projection doesn't go too far into the yard and isn't too close to neighboring properties, and that access is still maintained. And access is still maintained. The projection's 0.74 meters from the interior lot line, which complies with the 0.6 meter requirement. We just project too much into that 1.8 meter interior side yard requirement, and that's why that is being requested. And it's just simply a feature that sort of helps define the front of the house and gives prominence to the entrance. And so it really contributes to an attractive design, and it still allows there to be access through that yard. So we believe that this application meets the 4 tests, and you have a staff report before you as well that indicates no concerns as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the panel then if they have any questions for Mr. Sewer. Ms. Wright?
No, I don't.
Okay, Mr. Barrett? No. Ms. McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Sewer, could you just identify the side yards? It's both side yards that have the ornamental projection?
So there are ornamental projections on both side yards, but the side yard that we're seeking relief for is from the southerly interior side yard, because that's the ornamental projection. That's 0.74 meters from the lot line, which is permitted and fine, but it's just that projects 1.06 meters into that 1.8 meter side yard requirement. So I think actually, yeah, if we can put that slide up, so that kind of shows it. And Ms. McLean, you'll see that there's projections there, and those projections meet the bylaw. It's just the interior, there's just the ornamental projection on the southerly side there that we're seeking the relief for.
And that won't restrict, because there's a grading change, I think, from the front to the rear of the property. That won't restrict access to the rear yard for, let's say, a wheelbarrow or ladders or.
No, it's our opinion that it wouldn't restrict that access. So there's still sufficient access on the other side. It's 0.6 meters from the lot line as a requirement. And you can see that the narrowest point on the northerly side yard is 0.94, and then it's 0.74 on this side yard, on the southerly side yard. And the grade is actually being raised in the back. And so in terms of the space between, where there's going to be a retaining wall and the ornamental projection, there's still, I think it's 0.4 meters of space. So it's tight, but it still allows some space for you to go through if you need to go through the southerly side yard.
Thank you.
Mr. Baltz? No questions? Okay. Ms. Moore? Sorry. Ms. Wright?
Could you clarify for me, within the streetscape analysis area, how many narrow lots have double wide driveways?
So I think I have an image in the slideshow. I think it might be on slide 8. We can just put that up there. Actually, if we can go to slide 8, and then I'll just come back to this one. So slide 8 is showing all the properties that have driveways that take up the same or more percentage of the lot as what we're proposing. And then if we go to slide 2, sorry, slide 3. So in terms of the ones that have double driveways, anything there that's noted with a C, like, C is the second letter. So, there's BCB, BCA, 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 BCB. All of those would be, anything with the C as the second letter would be one that has a double driveway. And so you can see that there's quite a few properties here that do have a double driveway. I think the number was 8 of the 13 that were in the SCA had double driveways.
Super, thanks.
Any further questions, panel? No? Okay, now I'd like to ask the planning department for their comments on this application.
Thank you, Chair. Staff have no concerns with the application, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Ms. Wright, do you have any questions for
No.
planning?
No.
Mr. Barrett?
No.
Ms. McLean? Mr. Bolts? No questions? Okay. So, sir, you have the opportunity for the last word. Well, before I do that, I'm going to ask the public if they have any questions for the applicant. Is there anybody online? No one online. Anybody in the chamber? No one in the chamber. So now it's up to you, sir, to give us the last word on your application.
So thank you for that opportunity. So I think I've laid out why in our written submissions and in my oral submissions before you today as to why we think this meets the 4 tests. Once again, our recommendation is that this application be approved and that it does meet the 4 tests. Staff have no concerns, and staff's recommendation would be that this application meets the 4 tests. And so we would hope that the Committee of Adjustment approve this application. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the panel if they'd like to reserve on this application. All those in favor to reserve, please raise your hands. Your application will be reserved, sir, and within 10 days, you'll receive our written reply.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our next application, application number 4, having to do with 9 Kemp. And I'm looking for Amanda Sanford. Is Amanda Sanford online?
I am. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. Sanford. Would you like to give us a brief description of your application today?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are applying for a minor variance for a home that is currently under construction. Well, construction has been completed. We are applying for a minor variance to allow a driveway width of 9 meters, whereas the bylaw requires a width of 6 meters. This is so that we can access a triple wide garage. And ultimately, that means that we do have a permit for the approach, which is 6 meters. So you may find on my site plan that I have a 9 meter wide driveway with a 6 meter wide approach. And so as a result, we are looking for a minor variance to allow us to have that triple wide driveway, 9 meters at the garage.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the panel now if they have any questions. Ms. Wright?
Would you be able to clarify for me exactly the percentage in the front yard that you've got remaining as soft landscaping? I know.
Sure, I don't have the exact amount recorded, but I can assure you that we have looked at it and it is over the 40% requirement. In fact, I have 39.3% of the area, so it is within our 40% that we are required.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Balls, any questions for the applicant? No. Mr. Barrett, any questions for the applicant? Not this time. Thank you. Ms. McLean, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, so the building permit was issued on the basis of a 6 meter wide driveway for a 3-car garage. Is that
Correct.
the information? So it's built now, is it paved now or?
No, it's not completed. We've received an order to comply with the city. We've also worked with the counselor a little bit on this as well. This is required for the owner to comply with this. So we don't have anything built yet, but we need this piece so that we can complete the landscaping of the property.
So the 9-meter width comes right out to the city property, right out to the road allowance?
No, the road allowance is 6 meters, and that's what the private approach permit permits. But we have 9 meters at sort of the base of the garage, let's call it, but that is taking up the front yard. But there is still a portion of the yard which is between the front yard line and the road.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like now to ask planning if they've got any comments with respect to this application.
Hi there. No comments from planning staff. We have no concerns with the application, but if panel members have any questions, happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Ms. Wright, do you have any questions for planning?
No.
Mr. Barrett? No. Ms. McLean? And Mr. Bowles? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quickly, there was a revised plan that was submitted that because there was a question about the landscape strip between a walkway and the driveway. We have music. There we go. So I just want to confirm that that has been resolved and that it complies to the bylaw and this will be tied to plans which require that.
Yes, so the revised plan, I think somebody flashed it up on screen with the 0.6 that does comply with the zoning bylaw. I flagged it in my review because I was reviewing the walkway and just checking that provision. So that strip's required to make sure people don't use that walkway as additional parking space. But with the revised plan, staff reviewed that with the report that was submitted, so we have no concerns.
And that will be a condition of the final approval.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to move on to the public. If anyone from the public would like to make any comments with respect to this application? No one online and no one in the chamber. Okay, now we'll move on to you, Ms. Sanford. You have the opportunity for the last word.
Sure, I thank you this afternoon for your consideration. I think we've covered it and certainly look forward to completing this construction project.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to ask the panel if they'd like to reserve on this application. All those in favor, please raise your hands. The application will be reserved and you'll receive our answer in about 10 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon.
You too. The next application we will hear has to do with 1240 Anoka. And I'm looking for Muhannad Duday. Are you available, sir or ma'am?
Mr. Chair, item number 6 was moved into the
Oh, yeah, I
line.
just crossed it off for, sorry, sir, we're gonna have to go back up one. We're gonna see Mr. Boljic. Sorry about that, Mr. Boljic.
Not a problem, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, would you like to give us a brief description of your application, sir?
I do. I don't think there's a need to go into our slide deck, but I'm happy to do so if needed. This is actually a resubmission of a consent that was approved back in 2022. The approvals lapsed just in early December, just mere days away from getting everything completed. But for a few legal delays, it was unable to happen. So it's the same application, same draft reference plans, same properties. Nothing has changed. Staff have been kind enough to remove any of the conditions that were already fulfilled. That includes cash in lieu of parkland, the 30-centimeter reserve. All of those have been fulfilled. There's just 4 conditions left, and they relate mostly to plans or agreements that need to be effectively registered as part of the approvals. We've had an extensive back and forth with staff over the last couple of days. I really appreciate them expediting our requests and helping provide some clarification. Items 2 and 3 are related to the servicing plan and the grading plan. My understanding is those were already approved in November, but effectively the engineer has requested that the condition remain just to make sure that the plans that will be submitted to satisfy these conditions match the version that was approved in November. That makes sense to me. Condition 4, we did also have an extensive back and forth. That was over the noise covenant agreement. That was also agreed to and signed by both the city and the owner back in December. We just wanted to clarify with staff that that agreement was still valid and that there was nothing new coming our way. Specific to condition 1, and that's the reason that we moved off the unopposed agenda. We did provide some potential revised wording to staff, but I acknowledge this was shortly before the hearing, only about a half hour before the hearing. So I do have that proposed wording, but that's related to the proposed easements on parts 3 and 4 that bisect 2 of the severed properties. There was some confusing language in the original conditions of approval related to a joint use and maintenance agreement. Our legal team had an extensive back and forth with the city's legal team to clarify what that was, and it was eventually determined actually they were requesting an easement. Our lawyers have gone back and forth with the city's legal department because, of course, in this case, there can be no dominant or servient lands. So how would those easements be registered? And so rereading condition 1, which I believe you have in the staff report, we've proposed more specific wording. This is wording that we provided to staff, like I said, about a half hour ago, but it's specific to what was agreed upon with the legal department back on December 10th, I believe, in that they would effectively be private easements in favor of part 6 at the back, and that they would be registered at the that the easements would be conveyed to a third-party owner after completion of the severance. So it's a slightly different, I guess in this case, it's more specific than what condition 1 proposes, but the concern identified by my client and his legal team is that they've done a lot of work on these conditions and they want to make sure that we're not back to the drawing board with the city's legal department. So that wording was provided to staff. I did not receive a reply. Again, it was a half hour ago. But if staff have any comments on that, if not, and there's any hesitations, I would propose potentially that we adjourn for 2 weeks to give us a little bit of time to iron that out. Or if the committee is comfortable with the wording as proposed, and I can read that out, or perhaps staff can provide it, then we could move forward with that condition. But it's nothing to do with we're not changing anything. We just want to make sure that the efforts completed late last year remain valid. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to ask planning, Ms. Einkran, have you had a chance to take a look at the wording?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I did have a chance to look at the wording and we are okay with that. I can read that out to you, or the applicant can read that out to you.
Okay, why don't you read it out for us,
Okay.
Ms. Einkran?
Sure. So the condition number 1 is for the easement, and that is to be reworded to say that the owner have provided a written undertaking to the satisfaction of the manager of the development review all wards branch within planning, development and building services department or its designate, that an easement with respect to the services within parts 3 and 4 on deposited plan 4R 35828 and for the benefit of part 6 on the deposited plan 4R 35828, which easement addresses the necessary maintenance responsibilities, will be registered at the time that the part 3, 4 and 6 on deposited plan 4R 35828 are conveyed to a third party owner after completion of the severance contemplated by this consent.
Is that what you expected, Mr. Bolduc?
Correct. That's exactly the wording that we provided. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, committee staff would just like confirmation that the easements that are being created through the application are still valid, in which case we would need clarification on that condition in relation to certificates being issued.
Okay, can you confirm that, Ms. Einkran?
Can I take a moment, Chair?
Sure.
Mr. Chair, I'm not comfortable in getting this at the last meeting either, so. Sure.
So, okay, so is anybody else still uncomfortable about discussing this at the present time, Mr. Valls?
I think the applicant has indicated that adjournment for 2 weeks would be okay. So rather than trying to hammer this out in real time, perhaps that would be.
Panel members?
I agree.
Okay, I think it'd be best, Mr. Bolduc, if we adjourn for a couple of weeks to get it all straightened out and you get your I's dotted, T's crossed with the planning department. And then we can move forward with this application. You agree?
Certainly, we're happy to hear that the department is comfortable with the wording as proposed. We'll see you in 2 weeks if that's okay.
Okay, perfect. We have room in 2 weeks.
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair. It would be February 18th.
February 18 is the date, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, we're adjourning this application having to do with 1240 Anoka until February the 18th. Thank you very much. Oh, you want one more question?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, it's for 3440 Woodroffe.
Yes, okay, 3440 Woodroffe, yes.
That was it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we're moving on to 1240 Anoka. Mr. Munad Jude, are you available, sir? Hi. Please state your name and your address, sir.
My apologies.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, no problem. Mohanad Jude. And the address is 2647 Alta Vista Drive, Ottawa, Ontario, K1B75, but the subject property is in 1240 Anoka
Thank you.
Street.
Would you like to give us a brief description of your application today, sir?
Would you like me to go through the presentation that was
It's
submitted?
really your call, whatever you'd like to do.
Sure, yeah, I can go through.
You do have
quickly.
5 minutes to make the
Yes,
presentation.
That's fine. All right, so the subject property, 1240 Anoka Street. There's 2 applications, but it's just a semi-detached. We're essentially asking for a lot width and lot area reduction. So the requirement is 232 square meters. The requirement is 270 square meters, and we're asking for a variance of 232 square meters. And the lot width requirement is 9 meters, and we have 7.62 meters. That's the frontage. Next slide, please. Okay, so just giving you an overview on location. If you look at the right side subject area, the address is 1240 Anoka Street. Just showing where, giving some context. You got Heron Road, Bank Street. That's the main intersection. Billings Bridge near to the north, and then Carleton University near to the west. Next slide, please. All right, just to give lot area. So the lot area is 15.21. So that to be unsevered. We are not asking for a severance application, but the way it worked with the minor variances, you have to split it in half. And the depth is 30.46. Next slide, please. We just took some comparables for other semi-detaches that are built on the same street. So we didn't go very far. So in black, number 0, that's the subject property. Right to the east of that, you got a semi-detached there. Across the street, number 3, you also have another semi-detached there, and then down the street, you have also another semi-detached. Just to confirm, these are some detaches that do not currently conform to the zoning. I'm not bringing it into like any semis that do conform. And the only reason why some of them are labeled as 1, 2 each side, because those are a severed lot. Subject number 3 is not severed. It is still a semi-detached that had to go through a minor variance application similar to the one in front of you today. Next slide, please. All right, so lot width, lot area, those are the only 2 requirements. So the subject property is 1240 Anoka Street. I mentioned the dimensions, 15 by essentially 30 meters. Zonings R2F. And then at the bottom, 1 unit per 232 square meters is the density that we're asking for today. Next slide, please. I will go through this pretty fast. It just gives you context on the area. So we just focus on Anoka. So subject number 1, 1248 Anoka Street. The lot width is 7.58 by 30.46. This one is a severed lot. And at the end, the density is 1 unit per 231 square meters, where the zoning requires 270 square meters. Subject number 2, which is the other side, 1250 Anoka Street. It's slightly wider in the width, it's 7.62, but still requires a minor variance as the square meters is 232 square meters. Subject number 3, this is an unsevered lot, but each side would have been 7.62 by I forgot the dimension, but anyways, the square footage is 232. So you'll see a pattern between subject 1, 2, 3. Per semi, you're looking at between 231 and 232 square meters per semi. Next slide, please. Continuing the same thing, these semis are actually smaller width. So subject number 4 has a 6.83 meter frontage. And I think the depth is also slightly smaller, 30.4 meters, which results in a density of 1 unit per 208 square meters. If you recall, on the last slide, it was around 230 square meters, which is in line with our application. And then subject number 5, 1223 Anoka Street, also similar width as property number 4, 6.8 frontage, same depth, resulting 1 unit per 207 square meters. Next slide, please. So to just give you a summary, subject number 0, which is the subject property, 1 unit per 232 square meters. Everything after that, between subject number 1 to 5, everything is between lowest being 207, the grades being 232, which is what we're applying for. Next slide, please. So this just goes through all the tests. I can go through very quickly, but just to give general context, we are not building anything that's not already existing on the street. We didn't go further than what the beyond the street. Zoning is all the same on that street. It does not change unless you're on Bank Street or Heron Road, which all of Anoka's are R2F. So the zoning is the same sort of builds. And thank you for your presentation.
Please continue. Got another minute. Go ahead.
So I don't, we're of the opinion that these variances are minor, that they do fall in context with the neighborhood, and that it is appropriate to what we're trying to develop and what the city's goals are in terms of intensification. Thank you
very much. I'd like to ask the panel for their comments. Mr. Barrett.
Thanks.
Okay. Ms. Wright?
No, I don't.
Ms. McLean? Mr. Baltz? Just in some of the comments that were made by the public, one of which was they're concerned about rooming houses. Can you tell me if this property is zoned to be a rooming house?
So this property is not zoned for a rooming house, nor is that the intent.
Can you agree with that, Ms. Karen?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this property is not, a rooming house is not permitted on this property because Anoka Street is a local road, and the road either has to be an arterial or a major collector road for a rooming house to be permitted.
Thank you. I was just trying to address public's concern. Okay, any comments, Ms. Karen, on this application?
Staff have no concerns with the application, but I am happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Barrett, do you have any questions for planning? No, thank you. Ms. Wright?
No.
Mr. Baltz?
Just quickly, is forestry satisfied with the tree preservation? I see the forester.
Yes,
Mr.
thank you. I've discussed the TIR with Muhannad. I do have concerns with the tree protection measures that have been outlined in the TIR. However, those will be addressed through the tree permit application, the building permit application by the infill forester.
So you're satisfied that that will be taken care of and is not a consideration today?
No, as I've said, I have raised my concerns, and I think that tree protection can be achieved and the retention can be achieved through the development, but I've raised those concerns with the applicant and advised the infill forester about it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to move on to the public and see if there's anyone from the public online that would like to speak to this. Yes, there is. Can you please hook them in or her in? there a member of public who would like to speak to this application?
Mr. Chair, Mr. William Turner has been promoted to panelist.
Okay, I haven't seen him come up yet.
The name listed is Nadine Turner, but it's William Turner.
Okay, still nothing on my screen.
If Mr. Turner could please put his camera on and turn on his microphone.
We can't see you or hear you, sir. You need to turn on.
I'm
your-
just coming. Sorry, I'm just coming.
Oh, there you are. I can hear you. Can't see you though.
Just,
Well, do you want to turn on your camera?
I'm just trying to get that sorted out now.
You had it there.
Right
There you
there.
are.
Okay, sorry. There we
Nice
go.
to see you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Now you'd like to make some, can you just state your name and your address for the record, please?
Okay, so my name is William Turner, and I live around the corner from this particular property at 1631 Edge Hill Place.
Okay.
Okay,
Now-
and Mr. Chair, I have a short little presentation, if I might, please.
Sure. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to start by stating up front that I, like a lot of my neighbors who live in the vicinity of the proposed development at 1240 Anoka, are not against the renewal or modernization of properties in the neighborhood to accommodate more families. The Ridgemont neighborhood is an established residential neighborhood initially started in the 50s as a series of victory homes for demobilized World War II veterans looking to marry and start families. It is an older neighborhood with good-sized lots with a mix of bungalows and two-story homes, most with driveways and garages. Also of note is the neighborhood is intersected by roads, which are often very narrow by today's standards, and with restricted parking, and the streets are without curbs or sidewalks. This is certainly the case in front of the 240 Anoka property. What is proposed at 240 Anoka is a two-story semi-detached dwelling as shown in the plans submitted to the committee. Additionally provided to the committee by the developer are actual photos of recent two-story semi-detached dwellings that have been built on Anoka Street. The committee was provided with the exterior plans for the proposed dwelling. However, what has not been provided to the committee are the interior plans for the build, which we believe limits the ability of the committee from making an informed decision on the variance application. A quick review of the proposed exterior plans reveals a modern dwelling that is very similar in size and shape to the property that was recently built across the street at 243 Anoka. Indeed, the developer for this property is the same as the proposed 240 Anoka Street dwelling. We firmly believe that the applicant developer intends to largely replicate the 240 Anoka dwelling based on the internal configuration of the 243 Anoka Street. At that address, each dwelling is divided into a lower basement, upper ground, and second floor unit. Each side of the property contains 9 individual rooms. There are 6 full-size bathrooms in each semi, 2 on each floor, with common areas and communal kitchens. The committee need only look at the front and sides of the back exterior plans of the 1240 Anoka property to see the inordinate number of windows on each floor, which would corroborate our belief that the intended interior design at 240 Anoka. Since the completion of the 243 Anoka property, it has been occupied by term rentals, students and others, and for all intents and purposes is operating as a rooming house. We have seen adverts at local college notice boards in which students living in 241 Anoka are advertising for a 5th roommate. The proposed development, which seeks variance at 1240 Anoka
in no way represents the photos of the other semi-detached properties on Anoka provided to the committee in the paperwork submitted by the applicant for the variance. We believe the applicant and the developer wish to build a dwelling with numerous rental rooms on both sides of the semi. I would point out to the committee that on February the 16th of 2022, Panel 2 City of Ottawa Committee of Adjustment hearing on the 1243 Anoka property, a professional services company was hired at the time, and their representative stated that rooming units are not permitted on Anoka Street. As I said in the beginning of this presentation, the neighborhood is not against development of new modern family dwellings with driveways and garages and front and back lawns for children to safely play on. However, the property proposed at 240 Anoka goes, if the property at 240 Anoka goes ahead as currently planned, the neighborhood is looking at another dwelling with multiple single rooms for rent, which will become yet another rooming house in our neighborhood. We would urge the Committee of Adjustment to do its due diligence and make an informed decision based on the complete information, which in this case, we think should include the interior design plans for the proposed dwelling at 1240 Anoka. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and the committee for your attention in this matter, which is of great concern to the neighbors of 240 Anoka Street. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. I'd like to ask the panel if they have any questions for you at this time. Mr. Barrett, do you have any questions for the public?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Do you have to the applicant, do you have any plans of the interior plans for the with you today?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no interior plans have not been submitted as it was not a requirement.
Ms. Wright, any questions?
Could you confirm, I know there's obviously 2 primary dwelling units, but how many other secondary dwelling units would be on each app?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I understand his concerns. That was for a different client. We develop properties and we are not involved with the management afterwards. In this particular case, with this particular client, whether they do intend to do an secondary dwelling unit, which is what he's concerned with, through it is the applicant's choice whether they do or don't. Right now, our variances are only for a lot with a lot area, whether a semi-detached fits into our neighborhood. But to answer your question, I would have to have a direct conversation with the neighbor, with the client, if they are intending. Now, typically speaking, the elevations are not tied to minor variances of this sort with just lot width and lot area. We didn't put too much attention on the elevations. Now, they were submitted because they were asked to be submitted. I know on some previous applications, the elevations weren't required on these sort of applications. In this case, we are only asking for lot width and lot area. All the other setbacks and every other zoning requirement is conforming. So I know there's a lot of questions on how the elevations look and such, but again, I don't think they're in purview of what we're asking for today.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions for the public though?
No, I don't.
Okay, Ms. McLean, any questions for the public?
I think not for Mr. Turner. I would say to Mr. Turner, if there's a question on the use of the property across the street, then there is a complaint mechanism with the city whereby you can have it investigated whether the use is properly there or not. But my question is for Mr. Judah. So you're not clear on what the intent is of the applicant, whether it's a semi-detached or that there's going to be secondary dwelling units?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the intention today is just to apply for a minor variance for a semi-detached. Now, there are a lot of elements that take into consideration whether the client does so. I don't want to complicate the situation, but for example, this particular client is potentially selling their existing home and moving into the semi. That changes everything. So in terms of even like how they want the layout, it could affect a lot of things from the inside to the outside. So today's intention is only to apply for a semi. Whether they choose to do an SDU is number one, we have to get the SME approved. Once we get the SME approved, because they're not gonna move into this particular property if they don't get the SME approved. So if it does, so just to break it down, assuming we get the committee of adjustment to approve the semi-detached today, they are planning to or hoping to sell their particular property, in which case they are planning to move into this particular property. That would change the design. So in that case, my understanding is they wouldn't do an SDU, but we didn't get into that much depth of a conversation yet because we're still on step one, which is the application in front of you today. Whether a semi-detached would be approved or not, based on the zoning. Reality is, if we did have the frontage that was required, none of these questions, I think, would be coming up because we wouldn't even have to be at the committee of adjustment. And the question of the SDU usually is taken care of at building permit, a building permit stage.
I guess from our perspective, it's nice to know what the final plan is when we're being asked to vary the bylaw. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Mr. Baltz, do you have any questions?
Yes, so I don't want to veer into things that we're not permitted to consider, like what illegal uses might happen. But for Mr. Turner, is it, if these are what's permitted there, which is 3 units per side, is that by itself an issue? That's allowed under the zoning, yes.
Understood. And that's how the presentation was made for the property across the street at 124143, and then it turned into a rooming house.
So I guess that's what I'm,
So it went from
again, that would be as Member McLean was saying, that's a complaint issue, not a issue for us to necessarily be looking at today, but yeah.
Yeah, we're concerned that the developer for the property across the street is the same developer for this property proposed at 1240 Anoka. So our belief, without being able to see the internal plans, is we don't know what that structure is going to look like on the inside. And we're just concerned that the Committee of Adjustment is therefore not being able to make an informed decision as to what is going to appear at 1240 Anoka.
So if we, in making our decision, we're considering the fact that what is permitted there is up to 3 units on each side, that would satisfy your concern?
It would, yes, indeed.
Because that is what the zoning currently under the planning, revised planning act allows.
Exactly. That's what the zoning permits. We're aware of that. But having gone before this Committee of Adjustment before, a couple of years ago for the property across the street, the exact same thing was said, and then it turned into a rooming house. Now, I realize city bylaw can get involved, but this Committee of Adjustment is one of our last recourses to have a voice in what is going to go on this property. And from what we can see, if you look at the external plans that were submitted by the developer, which you have been shown, or you've been given at least, you can see the inordinate number of windows that are on 3 floors, the basement and the upper and the second level of this building. And it leads us to believe that there's going to be the building is going to contain nothing but a series of room rentals.
Perhaps, Mr. Chair, through you, Mr. May I direct a question to planning?
Please.
Yeah. So the question would be, given that there might be 3 bedroom units in each side of this, is there any city requirement that the bedrooms not be individually up for rental, that only the units would be rented?
Thank you, Chair. Just 1 minute. I am going to look up the definition for a dwelling unit in the zoning bylaw. A dwelling unit in the zoning bylaws is defined as a residential unit that is used or intended for use as a residential premises by one household and not more than 3 roomers or boarders, and contains no more than 4 bedrooms. And in this case, if it's going to be that every room is going to be rented out, then it is a rooming house, which is not a permitted use on the property. And they would need, if that is the intention, then they would need, the owners would need to apply for a change of use permit. And because the performance standards from zoning and building code perspective is very different, and a rooming house also needs licensing.
So it would not be legal to construct the maximum permitted density here and then rent out individual rooms, correct?
Yes, that is correct, because
Okay,
it would be a rooming
without a
house.
rezoning,
Yes, correct,
presumably.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Question I have for Ms. Eintran. Now, what are the conditions, what are the tests required for a minor variance of this nature to be passed? What are the 4 tests? 1, zoning bylaw has to be abide by. Provincial policy statement or the official plan has to be abided by. Okay, and it also it has to be desirable for the use of the land and orderly development, and it's minor. In each and every one of these cases, does this application meet those tests?
Thank you, Chair. The application does meet all the 4 tests of minor variance because a semi-detached is a permitted use on the property, and if there would be additional dwelling units, the Bill 23 does allow 2 additional dwelling units as of right on any property, any lot that is serviced fully by city water and sewer services. And the official plan also supports intensification. So yes, and there are multiple semi-detached dwelling units in the neighborhood. So yes, the proposal does meet the 4 tests of minor variance.
Thank you. Now, so if someone changes the use from what was intended to when they come to us, what does the recourse, does anybody in the public have?
Thank you, Chair. A compliant to bylaw services could be submitted, and enforcement, it would be up to enforcement to regulate that at that time.
So bylaw
Bylaw services.
would be the ones to contact.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have any more questions for the planning department? No further questions? Any further questions of Mr. Turner?
Mr. Chair, no questions, no. But I think there may be other people that might wish to speak on this matter.
I'll ask our coordinator. Is there anyone else looking to speak on this matter?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Mr. Jeff Lowe is online.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Turner.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Lowe, are you available? Mr. Lowe. Hi. Could you state your name and address, sir?
Yeah, my name's Jeff Lowe. I live at 1240 Collins Avenue. I'll apologize in advance. I'm coming to you through a hot connect on my cell phone. I'm overseas at the moment, but this is an important issue that I wanted to talk about. I've discussed this with Mr. Turner, and I wholeheartedly support everything he says. I understand the job of this panel is to consider the physical shape of the building, totally. But of course, the socioeconomic effects of these buildings are something that affect us here in our neighborhood. When 1243 was built, we were assured that a rooming house was not the intended building, but that's what happened. So how you go from a rooming house back to a another type of house, that may mean some structural changes for the building, is what I'm saying. You need more information, I think, before you can make a decision on this, because with the new plans that are coming through from the provincial government, and my understanding is some of the bylaws are being revised and they're in draft at the moment for definition of a rooming house, then I think before an informed decision can be made, this project needs to be put in abeyance until there is some clarity from City Hall. Because at the moment, I find it a little bit complicated. For instance, you cannot have a rooming house on a non-collector road. We have got 2 rooming houses that are functioning on single rented rooms in our community of Richmond. The one at Anoka, as Bill said, has got 18 rooms in it and 12 bathrooms. Those 12 bathrooms are signature to a rooming house. So I had a presentation. I don't really want to go through that now because I'm sure you've probably had a look at it, but Bill's really echoed everything I wanted to say. In summary, I think this program should be put in abeyance because there is a lack of clarity. And I will add, safety is paramount here. If this proposal goes ahead, and judging by what I see on the plans and hearing what I hear about the new rules, that is, in a building like the Semi, you could have 6 units. Each unit could be 4 bedrooms. So potentially you could be looking at 24 individual rooms in this one development that Mr. Juhad is describing. And I would argue that the windows, if you look at them, would kind of echo that. If you have 24 separate bedrooms and you add the 18 that are already present at 1243, you're going to have 42 extra people along that street. That's going to double the population of that block, the 1200 block of Anoka. Across the road in Alta Vista, we have St. Patrick's School with 994 kids. Every day, lots of kids walk through our area. Our streets, because this is a 1950 subdivision, our streets are very narrow. We have no sidewalks. So if we overpopulate and concentrate too much, we have too many cars, and I'm sure I don't need to explain to this committee what overpopulation will bring in terms of traffic, vehicles, garbage, and the remainder of things. If we overpopulate it, the chances of having an incident or an accident are only going to increase. You may say, well, they have those problems in Canada and they have those situations in Orleans, but the roads are bigger and they have sidewalks for the kids. We don't here. Our roads are very narrow and we have lots of intersections. So I think we have to think about the safety aspect. The remainder of the issues that Bill brought up, I think there are quite a few members of our neighborhood agree with, and we have asked Marty Carr, although she cannot be involved in this discussion, we have asked her to look into it. That's really all I have to say at this point. We don't want to prevent renewal, like Bill said. I myself live in a post 1950 bungalow, and yeah, it does need renewal, if not knocking down. But this over-concentration, over-density really needs to be addressed through City Hall. And without further information, I think we need more input from the city. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. I'll just ask to see if the panel has any questions for you. Mr. Barrett?
No, thanks.
Ms. Wright?
No, I don't.
Ms. McLean? Mr. Baltz? No further questions, sir. Thank you very much for your input. It's appreciated. Okay, now we'll go to our applicant, Mr. Jude. You have the opportunity for the last word.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I've taken down a lot of the comments that were addressed today, most of which are, although I hear them loud and clear, I don't completely understand where they're coming from. They are not in preview in regards to what we are here for today in regards to the minor variances. In terms of the use, I know they pointed out in particular one property on Anoka, which, as mentioned, other city officials can get involved if need be. Again, I'm not involved in that particular property anymore. So in regards to the two applicants I did hear from today, I do find it interesting that both applicants are not actually on Anoka. One of them is on Edge Hill, one of them is on Collins, both of which are not on the subject property. I didn't hear from anybody from those opposed today in regards to this particular application that actually live on the street, which if you would think or assume that they're the ones that would be most affected if there was any concern. Me speaking to some of the neighbors, nobody had any concern. That's me personally. But again, you knock on doors, you don't speak to every single person out there, whether they're home or not. I didn't hear these concerns. Again, I don't go too much further out because, you know, you can knock on 1,000 doors, but in particular, I did not go to Collins or Edge Hill. I did focus on Anoka, and the subject properties, the comparables that I took was only from Anoka. So I always tend to focus on what's most affected, if any, on my property. And that being said, just in regards to lot width and lot area, and no concerns from the City of Ottawa Planning Department, we do believe that these variances are minor in effect, and if anybody has any complaints on afterwards on how these particular properties are managed or anything of that sort, again, that's not in our purview. The developer doesn't get involved in that. We do welcome the city, any city official, everything gets approved by building permits. After building permits, inspectors get involved. They inspect every single aspect of the building. Afterwards, bylaw can be involved. Again, there's compliance departments. There are other departments that, again, if I need to get involved, I will, but usually I just build whatever's on the plans. Okay, so in that regard, I don't believe that a lot of these comments are applicable, even though I do feel for them. Absolutely do. But I don't believe they are in regards to what's in front of us today for the minor variance application.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. I'd like to ask the panel if they would like to reserve this application. All those in favor, please raise your hands. We're going to reserve on this application, and you'll receive our decision in 10 days. Thank you very much for your help today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, the next application we'll hear, it's their last application of the day, has to do with 886 Baseline Road. And here I am looking for Bingfeng Li. Mr. Li.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Bingfeng Li speaking. Today, we have our architect presenting our application. So now I move my speaker to him. Thank you much.
Sure. Just before we begin, I believe we have a little housekeeping to do, having to do with the variances themselves and some changes to the variances. Variance having to do with A00324, and specifically item B. It says to permit a reduced rear yard setback of 22.4 of the lot depth or 7.03 meters, whereas the bylaw requires the minimum required rear yard setback is 28 of the lot depth of 8.79. The last portion of that sentence is to be removed, but may not be less than 6 meters and need not exceed 7.5 meters. Do you agree?
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Good.
Thank you.
So the other change is having to do with variance E, and reading it in, it says to permit a reduced rear yard setback of 22.4 of the lot depth of 7.03 meters, whereas the bylaw requires the minimum required rear yard setback is 28% of the lot depth of 8.79%. The last portion of that sentence to be removed is but may not be less than 6 meters and not less than 7.5 meters. Are you in agreement with that?
Thank you. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can proceed then with a brief description of your application, sir.
Sure. Thanks, Chair. My name is Chang. It's a project architect. This property is 886 Baseline. It's just beside of the exterior farm between the Woodroffe Avenue and the Principal, and also at the boundary, the inner urban and outer urban area.
So what we're looking for is demolish existing single house and propose subdivide the property to the 2 lots and build each long semi-detached on each property. And also we're going to provide additional dwelling unit. And we're looking for minor variance to reduce the front yard setback and rear yard setback and reduce rear yard area. And this land is close to the Algonquin College and Calgary University, and also close to the civic hospital. So we already see a lot of the redevelopment along the baseline. So what we propose is the redeveloped urban land and provide more dwelling unit. So this minor variance, even we apply for minor variance, we still applied much more stop landscaping at front yard and rear yard, much more than minimum requirements by zoning bylaw. So we, in our professional opinion, our proposal meet 2024 TPS and 2022 official plan and also zoning bylaw. So that's a brief recap of our proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the panel? Mr. Barrett?
No, not at this time, thanks.
Ms. Wright?
No, I don't have any.
Ms. McLean? Mr. Baltz? No questions. Okay, then I'd like to go to planning and ask them if they have any questions or comments with respect to this application.
Thank you, Chair. Staff have no concerns with the application, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Just before we go on to the applicant, you're aware of all the conditions that the cities would impose should this application be approved?
Yes.
And do you agree with them?
Yes.
Great, thanks. Okay, do we have any questions for planning, Mr. Barrett?
Yes. Yes, just a question with regards to the rooming house issue. Is it allowed in this zoning bylaw?
Thank you, Member Barrett. Baseline Road is a arterial road, and a rooming house is permitted on this property, but it is not being proposed as shown on the plans in front of us. So, yeah.
Okay, Ms. Wright, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay, Ms. McLean? Mr. Baltz? No, no other questions. Okay. Now I'd like to move to the public. Let's see if there's anyone from the public. No one in the chambers, anyone online? There are no persons online. Therefore, I'll give you the last word, Mr. Lee.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for our panel and the planning staff. And we see this opportunity, this lot is about 7 feet by 100 feet. And we already see the similar lot size in this property. And we also see the similar semi-detached building being built. So we are really working close with the city planning, will be also with the building permit department to make sure our planning and the building design will be fully conforming to the building code and zoning bylaw. So we're happy have our proposal be approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the panel if they would like to reserve on this application. All those in favor, please raise your hands. This application will be reserved and we'll let you know our decision in 10 days. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think that concludes our hearings for today. Thank you all very much for your help, and we'll see you in a few weeks. Thank you.